2002. Professor Terry Endres has been involving himself in the UFO question far too long. As of recent, his fact-finding agenda has caused considerable alarm. Likewise, the research efforts of Ron Schaffner, a quarrelsome cryptozoologist, has caused some of us here at Central Command a few sleepless nights. One particular annoyance is the ever-bombastic Kenneth Young, using whatever methodology at your discretion. Your assignment, as always, is to obfuscate their efforts.
Are you ready? What's going to happen? Who knows? Am I worried about it? No. I mean, this happened back in 1991. What's the date now? 10 years later. You know. I mean, do these three men even exist anymore? I don't know. Why? Why not? I mean, if it's something that needs to be investigated to find out truth about things, so let it be. You know, can't hide everything.
Our world is a very strange place. No sooner do we think we have it all figured out when something new happens. Almost daily, science discovers things that change the previous day's definition of our universe. While the world's most intriguing mysteries, like UFOs, mysterious creatures, challenge us to delve ever deeper into these darker realms. Are you ready?
The views and opinions expressed in this program are not meant to alarm anyone, but are intended to inform the viewer about events that are reportedly occurring in the world around us. The viewer is asked to consider the information presented and come to a personal evaluation.
Welcome to UFO Update Live. We're going to look at some interesting stories from the tri-state area. We have a strange turtle-shaped UFO that hovered above Lexington, Kentucky earlier this summer. The account of a 1991 strange occurrence in Pierce Township where a strange blue object seemed to intersect the side of an automobile. And we'll also be looking at the strange case of the Mothman. And with me to start our mysterious look into these strange phenomena is Ron Schaffner, local researcher who often looks into claims of strange and unusual creatures in strange and unusual places. Welcome to UFO Update Live.
Thank you, Gary.
Ron, recently a movie has been released called The Mothman Prophecies, and this movie claims to be based on actual events. Now, I've seen the movie, and as a nice thriller movie, it's really an interesting and well-done production. But what's the real story behind this? Because if there are events that inspired this movie, what exactly are they, so that our viewers can understand and make the distinction between the movie and reality?
Well, what you have here is a real interesting series of events that include UFOs, strange creatures, men in black, and a collapse of a bridge that some have connected to this series of events.
Okay, you mentioned UFO reports. Now, how did those figure into this mystery? Because after all, we're called UFO Update Live, so let's deal with that for a second.
Well, the UFO reports sort of came after the Mothman reports came of a giant bird. They started circulating around the spring of 1967. After the initial reports of the big bird were seen.
Well, how about those initial reports? Where did the actual, the first event that set this Mothman series of sightings going?
In mid-November of 1966, two young couples were in their car driving around a wildlife preserve, which was locally known as the TNT area, which back in World War II was an ammunition dump that stored munitions for the war effort. They were cruising around here, and the one lady saw a strange creature by an old abandoned power plant there. She described it as about 6 feet tall, had a wingspan of about 10 feet, and red glowing eyes. She asserted that this thing followed them into the town of Point Pleasant, where it soon disappeared. They went on to a local restaurant there and had some friends of them call the police to report their sighting. After that, several other people in the next ensuing weeks also reported strange bird, man-like creature flying around the area that was reported to chase their cars.
Well, that's interesting. How did the Mothman get its name? I mean, we you know.
Well, it was dubbed that from the local press because of an episode of the Batman series that was around the same time, from a character called Mothman. Originally, the localism was termed Birdman. The Mothman took off a little bit after that.
Now, I believe in 1976. You personally went to Point Pleasant,
right?
And you tracked down some of the witnesses. Who did you actually talk to?
We talked to Linda Scarberry, who was one of the original witnesses on the November 16th incident. This was 10 years later. Me and another researcher decided that we wanted to go and check the area out and talk to some people because it isn't that far from Cincinnati. We talked to Linda Scarberry and her mother, Mabel McDowell, who both say that they seen a similar creature, and they gave us a real long interview. They were really cordial people and told us about some strange series of events that occurred to them during this time. Both had claimed to have seen the creature dozens of times, and they also claimed to have had UFO sightings and visited by individuals that are commonly known as men in black. We haven't really been able to figure out who the people were that talked to them, but we think it might have been some kind of government agency, because we're talking something that happened back in the 60s, and a lot of your government attire was dark suits, thin ties, hats. They all drove dark-looking cars. It's very important to understand the economical and sociological climate in that time in our history. We were involved in the Vietnam War. The anti-war movement was gathering steam at the end of the 66 and in 1967. And the government may have had an interest in something like this because the Mothman stories were hitting the national news wires and reports of UFOs. And the government might have taken an interest in this because they were very concerned about subversive actions, the mood of the populace at the time. So while we cannot absolutely prove that the government was involved, it's logical to conclude that they may have been somehow investigating this on their own, maybe to test out psychological warfare on the populace.
Now, when you interviewed Linda Scarberry, and no doubt you went over the testimony that she presented, I guess, to other researchers earlier, was she, and I believe you talked to her mother as well,
yeah.
Were they able to provide you with any other information to help you in your investigation?
They basically told us the same story that had been in the press, plus they told us a few additional stories that, you know, weren't let out in any of the books or anything like this. We felt they were real sincere individuals, and they were telling us to the best of their ability what they seen. They claim that they were visited by Mothman a couple of times. They described this creature as prominently having the red glowing eyes, and they couldn't really tell a head, but it had a wingspan of about 10 feet, and it seemed like it had normal human looking legs. They described this creature as being lonely. They thought it was cold, and they thought it was trying to communicate with them. They were also being visited by individuals in a black car and asked a series of questions on what it was they saw. Linda also claims that she has had visions at night and dreams of a strange person in her bedroom. smoking a cigarette and asking her questions, and other strange phenomena that occurred around that time.
Now, it's also interesting, again, historically speaking, I believe the period between, let's say, late 1965 and early 1967, that almost 2-year span, was this not also a time of high UFO activity across the nation?
Right, absolutely. They are what we consider flaps, and flaps are a concentration of sightings in a specific geographical area at a specific time. There were a lot of UFO reports up and down the Mississippi and Ohio valleys during that time. Mm-hmm. Project Blue Book had its hands full investigating cases, but it's interesting to note that at this point in time, the Air Force was really starting to get tired of the UFO phenomena and was trying to find a way out.
Well, that's, again, in the context of history, this then led to the Colorado University study, right. I believe. Were there other reports from other areas of a similar Mothman-like creature? Now, remember, within the same time frame, can we then establish a direct connection between UFO sightings and these Mothman sightings?
Well, in the course of my work on other research and other investigations I've done, I've never really been able to find a connection between UFOs and strange creatures. Although the Scarberrys and other researchers have presumed that there is a connection between UFOs. What's interesting about the Mothman case is after the bird reports into December of 1966, following into the winter of '67, when spring came, we got a lot of reports of UFOs from this general UFO activity around the TNT area. We had dozens of reports. You could probably almost say hundreds of UFO reports from the same area. My research has shown that some of them can be explained as astronomical events, celestial bodies, some even aircraft activity. And the Air Force was also conducting experiments with the C-119 flying boxcar with huge searchlights. It was a maneuver they were practicing that they used in Vietnam as a reconnaissance tactic to locate the Viet Cong and North Vietnamese. The Air Force admitted that the flight path was from Columbus across West Virginia. Some of the reports I can't explain. They're just too hard, and the descriptions don't match anything that I can put my hands on for a simple explanation.
Before we go on, I just want to let our viewers know that they can contribute to this show. They can call in. The number will appear on the screen. The operator will take your name and number so that you don't have to, hold on the line for 20, 30 minutes. The operator will take your name and your number, and we'll get back to you as soon as we're able to fit some questions into the program. Thank you. Ron, again, witness reliability is a real important part of this sort of anecdotal evidence. Now, you've already said that Linda Scarberry and her mother seemed sincere. Does that also mean that you think they were credible?
Oh, yeah. I believe that they actually saw something that they believed it was a strange animal, bird-like creature that they could not describe or that they did not know what it was.
Okay. Just as a point of interest, how do you, as an investigator, determine the credibility of a witness in a case like this?
Well, it's very difficult because even if a witness is very sincere, it doesn't mean it's necessarily telling you the truth. We find that most witnesses don't hoax, they don't make things up, they're very sincere in what they report to us. But on the other hand, it's very simple for them to misinterpret something that they're not aware of. UFOs, a lot of witnesses are not aware of different types of aircraft, their lighting. A lot of them are not familiar with astronomical events. Same with the Mothman. They don't realize that there could be a zoological answer to what they're seeing.
Mm-hmm. Now, again, were there any other sort of strange creatures? I mean, the reports of the Mothman no doubt came from more than one source, correct?
Yeah.
Are we seeing then basically the same details from witness to witness?
Well, actually, there was a report prior to the Scarberrys, and this was a group of people at a National Armory, I'll say about 6 miles north of Point Pleasant, saw a strange-looking bird. There was also some reports of birds on the other side of the Ohio River. Now, reports are very vague on that, but They seem indicative of turkey vultures or sandhill cranes. And
Well, what specific? What is it about the sandhill crane? Now, we've got witnesses who are pretty much familiar with the animal life in the area.
that's not necessarily true.
Okay, that's a good point. What is it about the sandhill crane that kind of identifies or
The height
isolates it?
and the width of its wingspan, plus the sandhill crane has got red markings on both sides of his face. Now, in turn, the witnesses described that when their headlights shined on this creature, it was glowing red eyes. Now, with the combination of the light shining on eyes and the red marking would give an unsuspected witness the illusion that it was a strange creature with large red glowing eyes.
Well, now with the release of this recent movie, The Mothman Prophecies, you took a second trek out to Point Pleasant. We're going to look at some footage here of your follow-up investigation into this mystery, and maybe you can provide some commentary to what what we're seeing on this tape. And did you notice if the Point Pleasant had started to make some sort of take some advantage out of the notoriety of the movie?
Well, yeah, this is a situation you always see in flaps of strange events. The economics of cryptozoology, like I like to say, that people do kind of cash in on this, and the town is very infiltrated with investigators and reporters coming around. So, you know, some joke about it.
Now, are we going to see some of this in this footage that we'll have coming up?
What we have here is just basically showing the viewer how the area looks like,
Okay.
the town.
Let's go to that let's go to that tape right
Okay.
now, and let's listen to Ron's commentary. Okay, what do we have here?
We're showing the geographical location of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, which isn't far from Cincinnati.
So it's basically on the border
This
between
is the
two
new
states.
bridge and the bridge going into Point Pleasant, crossing the Kanawha River. Some historical signs of the town, and as you can see, it's very. If you've seen the movie, this isn't
the actual city.
right.
of the movie.
The actual film was taken in Pennsylvania.
These are
This is
victims?
the memorial, the victims of the Silver Bridge disaster on December 15th, 1967. And we're going to show a little footage here of what the bridge looked like.
And this is the Silver Bridge back in
Right.
the 60s.
And this is the crash of the bridge and the wreckage taken from some old footage from the news wires, local television stations. There's the old pillars for where the bridge stood. This is where we're at presently, and it was right next to the railroad bridge, practically parallel. And just some shots of the Ohio River that we took.
Well, how many victims perished in this event?
About 40-something victims perished in this. And here we're going by, well, this is a new power plant. Back then there was some older power plants. And this is the road into the old TNT area, which is now the McClinton Wildlife Preserve.
When you say TNT area, what are we actually talking about?
Well, as I explained before, this was an area where the U.S. Army stored munitions during World War II. Here we're looking at some topographical maps trying to pinpoint some areas in the Point Pleasant area.
Are we seeing an igloo in the back there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And this is the Wildlife Preserve. And this even makes the sandhill crane theory seem even more plausible.
Because this would be the habitat we would expect. for
Right,
that?
absolutely. This is one of the igloos that I was talking about where they stored munitions. One of the theories set forth for the UFO sightings is the configuration of all these igloos and the large array of high-tension power lines in the area. I mean, actually, and this is the top of the igloo, looking over at the ponds.
Now, how many of these depots, these ammunition containers, are there in this area?
Oh, there's probably a dozen or so of these in the area. And here's the high-tension power lines. Interesting, when we were there, you can actually hear the buzzing of the electricity flowing through the wires. Some theorize that the configuration of the igloos and the high-powered tension lines may have produced some UFO sightings.
By that, how do you mean? I mean, did it track flying saucers, or are we talking about sort
back
of a natural
then, the
phenomenon?
high-tension power lines Not as much known about the conduction of the wires and the principles of induction was known today. They can release what's called corona discharge.
So we're talking about sort of a light effect that's
Right, and
generated
a
by
noise
this
effect
electricity.
too. It will
Okay.
let out strange noise.
What do we have here?
This is some of the old remains of the old power plant area. This was later determined to be a toxic waste problem.
Oh, yeah?
And the EPA had to go in there with a Superfund cleanup and clean this whole area out because there's a lot of toxic waste due to the byproducts of TNT
I see.
and dynamite.
Now, how does this figure into the reports of the Mothman?
Well, there's been some reports of some of the witnesses having eye burn or severe conjunctivitis during seeing UFOs and that thing. And it's possible that maybe they may have gotten their hands on some groundwater or land that had this toxic waste and ground surface.
Yeah, is there a correlation then between the location of Mothman sightings and this contaminated area?
Well, other than the fact that it's a wildlife preserve
Right.
and area, it's possible that some of the witnesses may have gotten in touch with some of these contaminants, touched their eyes, which we all normally do as human, or maybe even ingested some of it somehow.
Well, we have a caller on the line. Gerald is his name, and we're going to go to Gerald right now. Gerald is gone. Okay. Unfortunately, Gerald has decided not to wait. So we hope he calls back because we will take his call and whatever he has to share with us. What is your overall take then on what was going on in and around Point Pleasant to generate these sightings?
Well, I can't explain all of it. Like I said, we have a good mystery here. We have several aspects of UFOs, poltergeist, cryptozoology, a whole array of subjects. But we have reached some logical conclusions from the descriptions that some of the witnesses given that maybe they've seen some kind of bird.
Okay.
We know the description, wings, feet, something that was flying in the air. So as I said, zoological, we can
So some
presume
kind
it
of
was a
bird
bird.
with long enough legs that it would give sort
Right.
of this illusion of being a man-like creature.
And the majority of sightings were at dusk or at dark.
Well, our caller is back, and we're going to go to him right now, so we don't have to make him wait any longer. Caller, you're on, I think.
Line 3.
Line 3? That's what I've got, line 3.
All right, bag it going.
Hi, Mr. Endres.
Okay, hi, how are you?
Hi, we finally got through.
Yeah, a little technical problems there, but go ahead.
Mr. Endres, I can't add anything to your Mothman situation, but I would like to present a theory by Jacques Vallée, if I may.
Sure, go ahead.
I don't know if you're familiar with Jacques Vallée, but he is a French-born astrophysicist
Correct.
and computer scientist who now lives in the United States, I believe, on the West Coast.
That's right.
This gentleman in his later years is considered to be one of the top and foremost ufologists and investigators of our modern time.
He worked closely with J. Allen Hynek back in the 60s.
Exactly. And Mr. Springfield, yes, you're right. His theory on the origin of UFOs and occupants is simply that they appear and disappear instantly in our four-dimensional world and beyond our space-time. And they do appear to be real physical objects
Right.
that seem to be coming from a multiverse
Right.
or a fifth dimension.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
Now, this theory, of course, is diametrically opposes the more accepted extraterrestrial hypotheses, which says, in effect, they originate from a different planetary system.
Right.
So, if you would you and your guest please comment on this, and then after
Sure.
the comment, I would like to present some facts concerning Mr. Vallee's hypotheses and
Okay.
why I concur with him.
Okay, well, you can hang on there for a few minutes. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Gerald. Did he refer to these as like ultra-dimensional?
Yes,
Okay.
it's hard to explain
Right.
because we're used to four-dimensional theory, and this fifth dimension is
It's the
very
Twilight
cloudy.
Zone.
It's very hard to
Yeah.
explain, and I really can't add to
Okay.
that.
Ron, I think you've talked about like Passport to Magonia and other works that.
Yes, that's one of his works.
Right. Yeah.
Well,
so
well,
Ron,
author John Keel is pretty much on the same line as Jacques Vallée, and he was the author of Mothman Prophecies and Strange Creatures from Time and Space, which talked about the Mothman creature and the UFO reports similar. He's under the same presumption that all this phenomena originates from the same source. That is, it has to do with the electromagnetic spectrum of our universe, and that these creatures or UFOs or whatever come in contact with us, I guess like you said, through another dimension, that they are seen coming into the electromagnetic spectrum that we can see and go back out again. And this is a lot of the reasons why UFOs come in flaps. They are seen to appear and disappear, and why none of these creatures have ever been caught. So there is some, good arguments to their hypothesis.
yeah, so I think probably, Ron, maybe there might have been something with the combination of elements there that maybe we got a glimpse into this other part of the electromagnetic spectrum. Visible light's a very narrow band.
Right.
And then you've got radio waves and
Infrared,
short waves, all
ultraviolet
that
on
kind
the
of stuff
other
that we
ends.
can't see.
Absolutely.
Okay, Gerald, what's your take on this?
Well, it's quite obvious that with a number of sightings that the sighter says, hey, the thing disappeared instantly. And I don't think that the speed of light has anything to do with it. I think this dimensional theory has a lot to do with it.
Okay.
And this is numerous cases where this has been presented. Hey, the thing just disappeared.
Yeah.
With a blink of an eye.
Means I could have a Mothman standing right next to me, but we just can't see him right now.
Exactly, and I believe that the hypotheses with the theory of dimensional whatever
Right.
is a good hypothesis.
Well, Gerald, we appreciate your call, and it was nice of you to contribute to the show. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
Okay, do you have any last comments, Ron, about the Mothman and what we need to
Just
know?
one more comment
Sure.
on him. A lot of times to me, the extraterrestrial theory makes no sense at all. I mean, I'm not saying that life doesn't exist on other planets, but they're just too far away to come around and chase us around in cars and stuff. The dimensional theory that the caller mentioned would make more sense to that. However, when witnesses describe crafts disappearing, you've got to consider their testimony and how they may have misinterpreted something in the sky.
So, in effect, then, we still don't really have a concrete answer to give anyone about the Mothman, correct?
No, I'm not going to stick a limb out here and say that it was a sandhill crane. Although from the research I've done, from all the descriptions that's been given to me, that I think we're on to something here that is a known zoological species that these witnesses saw. You have to remember it was dark.
Sure.
You have to remember this TNT area was a lover's lane. You have to remember the times we were back in the 60s. There's a local theater in Point Pleasant. I'm sure all the old science fiction movies were shown there. Everybody was aware of what was going on. Wasn't a lot for teenagers to do in Point Pleasant except drag race in the TNT area or go to the local restaurant. So there's a lot of things you have to consider here.
Yeah. And so, again, we're faced with a challenge. Every day we see a new mystery come our way, and we've got one now that just, over the past 30 years has remained in sort of a limbo. We've got some good ideas, but there's just nothing we can really nail down. I think it's time now to take a look at the Lexington UFO, a strange event that occurred this past summer over Lexington. Let's take a look at that.
On Thursday, August 2nd, 2001, a news crew from ABC affiliate WTVQ, Channel 36 of Lexington, Kentucky, observed and videotaped a strange object in the sky from a car wash near Richmond Road and Man o' War Boulevard. The object was said to change shape and was comparable in size to a car or a small van.
Well, the news channel was out to the location where I work, and they was doing a story on heat, humidity, what it's like working in the hot sun and everything. And it came a small shower, and things kind of died down. And I was talking to the lady with the news crew, and she kind of stepped to one side, and I looked up in the sky, and there was an object that looked kind of like an egg or just a round shape, just kind of floating. And I asked her, I pointed it out to her, and she said, no, I don't know what that is. And I said, you think it's a UFO? She said, well, I don't know. So she hollered over to the camera guy. It took him about a minute to realize there was something up there. I'm not sure how much footage they got of it, but the best footage was from the time I first seen it for about the first 45, 50 seconds. Then it was getting so far away that you couldn't really make it out with the naked eye. So the cameraman probably missed the best shot of it. As it was moving further and further away, it changed shape 2 or 3 times. Probably more than that, but to the naked eye, at least 2 or 3 times before it was out of sight. So the object itself had to be rotating. Whether it was light enough for the wind to rotate it, or if it was heavy and it had its own power source to rotate itself, it was definitely rotating because the shape kept changing.
Surprisingly, the oddity attracted very little attention.
Even here at this location, when I first noticed it, probably 4 or 5 people out of the 30 that was working, just that few number of people here seen it. Everybody else was busy or inside, or just the people out front that seen me pointing up. And the news crew that was here, there's 4 or 5 people that may have seen it.
After the video was made, the recording was hastened onto the 11 p.m. newscast that evening. What is this object? Is it a balloon, or is it something else? You be the judge.
Someone who investigated this case that happened in Lexington this past summer. I'd like to introduce Kenny Young. Kenny, when you went to Lexington and interviewed these people, what was your impression of their credibility?
Well, I got to tell you, the whole time I was pretty thrilled about the case. I really thought this was something that was worth, the trip to Lexington to talk to the people. But however, when I got back in town, I saw the video. I was quite amazed that somebody could actually perceive this, which I thought looked an awful lot like a balloon.
Like a balloon. Well, it just so happens that such a balloon with that kind of shape is commercially available. It's a party balloon. Now, we didn't have a chance to get this thing up in the air and see if at a distance it took the same kind of configuration as our UFO. But we have to bear in mind that the video shows something against a featureless sky, and it's, this isn't very big, but when you have no points of reference, it takes on a dimension of its own. So, something like this is available. Does this sort of kind of fit the...
Well, when you came up with that, you blew me away, because that looks like that's dead on what the object is. One thing that's peculiar about this is, and this I think goes back to the ever-present witness misperception, the people that saw this thing and videotaped it, they were of the suspicion that this object was the size of a van or a small car. So that was a little peculiar for them to see that in the sky and interpret that size to something which probably is what you have there.
Well, we've often discussed before that through no fault of the witness, and not because that things are poorly perceived at a distance.
It is an honest misperception.
Sure.
And it's fueled partly possibly by the desire to see something that's a little unusual in the sky.
Now, you've brought with you some other cases that we want to discuss and take a look at.
Right. We had a very interesting sighting happen in Monroe, Ohio. And this was actually in mid-January of this year. And this is a very interesting sighting. The claimant, which I spoke with on the phone, described seeing something that resembled to him, he said, a comet, slightly orange in color. And also, this area is of particular interest. We've had some sightings around in this area. I believe we talked about the Warren County sightings from last year of the police officers in Waynesville. Shortly after that event from last year, we had another happening, and this was from an area near Franklin and Springboro. And we did go to the location and actually interview a witness.
Okay. Are we going to see some footage on that?
If we're lucky, we'll see it.
Okay. Let's keep our eyes open here because there's some really interesting stuff going on.
Started off as a hot year for UFO sightings in Ohio, just weeks after several policemen reported seeing a UFO near Waynesville. It was reported that another UFO appeared in nearby Springboro.
Just something caught my eye in the sky, something kind of bright, and I thought that it might be a plane or something just kind of low looking, but it seemed like it was really bright to me. So I just kind of looked up in the sky above the tree line up there, and I saw like a pretty decent sized, real intense white light, and like real super bright. It kind of started floating around like a fishing bobber would in the water. That's the best way I can describe it. It just kind of, I don't know, like a ball or something. It just kind of up and down like this, and then jerked back real quick. And as it jerked around like this, it was still moving up and down. You know, like something was pulling it down and pushing it up at the same time it was moving left to right. I would say it was more like a headlight, but it was, you know, like I said, I mean, it was real decent sized, and it was just an intense bright, it was crisp, you know. I do not know for sure if anyone else saw that or not, but I would assume with 75, it runs parallel with the street here. So, I mean, I would assume in that amount of time and, you know, just the way that it was positioned in the sky, that somebody would have seen it. You know, I haven't checked it out or nothing. I haven't called, like, Springboro police or people like that. I've looked that way with it before. You know, I assume it was somewhere Springboro, Franklin, in that area. I've not called the police or anything to check it out. As I was talking to one of my friends on the phone in Kettering about this, I heard some helicopters, like, kind of that way. I couldn't see them, but I heard them, and he heard them on the phone with me. So, you know, he was kind of like, you know, what the hell is that, man? What you got going on over there? And I just told him, you know, man, it sounds like helicopters to me as far as I know, you know, but I never once saw anything.
Kenny, in looking into this case, what did you think was its most interesting feature?
Well, to me, the interesting feature would have been the location where this happened, and for some reason, there are a lot of UFO sightings in this corridor, and I suspect it could have something to do with Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
So you think might be some sort of test? Or
it's possible, and you always have to keep that in mind. And what happened on the website, and we can put the website address up there. I take a lot of UFO sighting reports, and I try to afford some investigation, what I can, to these to the reports and to the claims that come my direction, and sometimes it gets a little taxing because I hear a lot of unusual stories. But you know, and I also think it's important to just stress that my interest in the UFO subject does not translate into a belief. I think it's important to say that because a lot of people assume that because you're interested in the topic, you have a faith or belief attachment to it, but I don't in my case. I try to investigate the reports to look for an explanation when one is viable. And we did get one report that I got in my direction back in '97. And like I say, you get so many of them, it's not too much one person can do about all this, but I put the report aside. I kind of just put it on the shelf, and I was fishing through my files earlier this year. I came upon the report, and I thought, well, maybe we'll follow up on this. This is from Claremont County, Ohio.
Okay.
And we've had some previous reports from Claremont County, Ohio before, and it's a place where there's a lot of sighting reports that are generated from this area. And so I worked with the co-researcher, a friend of mine, Donnie Blessing.
Okay.
And
is this a current case? I mean, is it something that happened in
well,
97?
it happened in 91.
Okay.
And interestingly enough, this is one of those reports, and there could be more of these type of reports that just slip through your fingers. We didn't hear about this for years.
Okay. Let's take a look at some footage that has been prepared around this case.
Okay.
It is claimed that in the fall of 1991, 6 firemen from the Pierce Township Fire Department were called out to the intersections of Merwin 10 Mile and White Oak on what they initially believed to be a routine run. But as you're going to see from our report, what they saw and did that night was anything but routine. According to the primary claimant, Clermont County resident Mr. Lewis Spears and the other fire crew responded to the scene of what they first thought was an automobile accident. Instead, they observed a mysterious object hovering 2 feet above the asphalt roadway. Spears gave his first interview about this unusual incident in 1997 and only recently agreed to go on camera with his bizarre claim.
It came in as an auto accident, which is basically a code 16, which is an auto accident. Didn't say anything about injuries. It said an car accident at this intersection, which is Merwin 10 Mile and White Oak. And what we rolled upon was this pickup truck and this object that was sitting in the side of this thing. It was a blue flame looking, like when a jet takes off, you know, the real hard blue flame that they hit when they take off of the planes or off of the runways. It was that type of blue flame. I think the light hit him, to be totally honest with you, because it was in the middle of his truck. It looked like a tube to a point, like it came down to a cone area. And then up near the truck, you just really, you know, you couldn't be sure because it was right up against it, you know. I can get as close to that light and touch it, you know, put my hands on it, and it wouldn't have hurt you. We didn't know whether to pull a hose on it. We didn't know what to do. Out of us people that were there, we're the only ones that seen it. And nobody else can even experience the feeling that or what we even saw. It vanished. Like, it just faded away. I mean, it just got real dim, and then gone. Like energy was gone out of it. You know, like if you turn off a generator and you see them old-fashioned light bulbs where they just slowly take the glow out of it.
In preparation for this report, we were indeed able to confirm that Lewis Spears was with the Pierce Township Fire Department in 1991. We also launched a major investigation into the alleged events, hoping to find support for this bizarre claim. During our course of investigation, we have talked to local fire and police departments, we have talked to political officials, residents, and family members in and around the area of the alleged incident. Of the many people contacted, I spoke with several who gave interesting information, and one person provided conflicting testimony about the alleged incident. In a key development that may give direct support to Spears' claim, I talked with 2 people who recall an event similar to that which Spears described, both of them formerly with the Pierce Township Fire Department.
There were 2 or 3 of them, other firemen besides me, in the firehouse that night. And they were all the light in the road, like a ball. I don't know, some of the firemen were leery of it. I was too. I didn't want to get around it. Didn't know what it was. It was weird, I know that. Not that far off the road. this round ball-like thing.
One former fire official whose credentials have been independently verified and whose confidentiality we will protect told us he submitted a written report regarding a strange glowing object in the roadway.
I had to write it. I didn't type it. And for the township, what they did with it, they didn't pay any attention to it.
One informant, first denying the event ever took place, went on to recount his observations of an unusual light in the road while stressing that he did not want any involvement in this investigation whatsoever. And the story does not end there, and almost takes on a conspiratorial edge when Spears suggests that he was summoned back to the firehouse the following day to be debriefed about the incident by 3 strangers.
Okay, we got a call to be at the office here for a meeting. That's what we thought. It was, a simple bitch session, like we did something wrong, or somebody didn't do this, or somebody didn't fill up the fire truck the night before. And when we showed up, it was just the men that were there that night. And there were 3 gentlemen dressed plain clothes, nothing out of the ordinary. It didn't look like government officials. And their words were very intimidating and to the point of, you didn't see nothing, it didn't happen, don't talk about it. And that's basically how long that meeting lasted. And we were dismissed. I mean, it never happened, didn't see nothing, don't talk about it. They did not dress up like that movie Men in Black and, have on special glasses that made you forget about something, because you don't forget about it. It's going to be right there, locked in your memory.
Despite our investigative efforts, we could find no documentation to confirm that any such event had taken place. Spears makes the claim that the incident report resulting from this event was either tampered with or removed from the files.
I think they were taken. I think anything that we had was gone because they were no longer there. Because, at that point, it just seemed like everything had changed here at this place. The intimidation that I felt was that, I can't trust anybody. Who are these guys in the first place? I had thousands of thoughts going through my head. Who were these men? They didn't identify themselves. They didn't say who they were or where they were from.
Who were these 3 men that were alleged to have been here at the Pierce Township Fire Department in 1991? And is there any record of this event?
Am I worried about it? No. I mean, this happened back in 1991. What's the date now? 10 years later. I mean, do these 3 men even exist anymore? I don't know. Why? Why not? I mean, if there's something that needs to be investigated to find out truth about things, so let it be. Can't hide everything.
While investigating his claim, it is wise not to ignore the possibility that those hard-to-find witnesses to the incident may not want to talk to us about the encounter on or off the record, due in part to the alleged debriefing by the 3 intimidating strangers that came to the fire department. But one thing we do know, Louis Spears has gone on record with a very strange event that defies conventional explanation. This is Donnie Blessing reporting from Pierce Township in Claremont County, Ohio.
We have Donnie Blessing here in the studio with us. I want to thank you for doing a very good job on putting together that piece with Kenny. Donnie, what feelings did you have about the sincerity and credibility of that witness?
Well, I kind of feel that he might be telling the truth because he sounded very sincere to me when he talked to us. And, and you have to think, well, he wasn't making anything out of this. He just come forward with this story and he started, telling us all about all this. And, I found it fascinating that he would actually come forward with this story, stand in front of the fire department where he worked, and tell this story for the whole world to see. And you know, I just felt he was real sincere.
In speaking with the witness, were there any details that weren't actually included in the video segment that you
Yes,
saw?
there was. There was one thing I found that was very interesting, in the fact that he said that when they were standing there and they were looking at this object and it started to fade away, they were I kind of got the impression when he was saying it, they were kind of mesmerized a little bit by this object. And he said that as he looked at this object, he felt his energy just draining away. And he said he just got really, really tired. And he also told us that, you know, when they got back to the fire station, he said he was just so tired. And the next day, he said he slept, you know, he slept in. He usually gets up early, but he slept in. And he said, I got up and I felt like I hadn't even gotten any sleep. I was still very, very tired. And
So-
he said that was unusual.
Unusual, I mean, even though he runs emergencies and, you know, he's on adrenaline, I guess.
Right,
for
that's what he
a
said.
period
He
of
said,
that.
we're on adrenaline, we're pumped up, and we're ready to go out there. And he said it was just like, I just could barely move. And he said, I was just so tired. And he kind of thinks that had something to do with, you know, what he saw.
Kenny, have you been able to do any kind of follow-up investigation into this blue light?
Well, yeah. Well, you know, one thing I was going to say was when I talked to this gentleman back in '97, and of course I didn't afford any investigation to this, but many of the details that he came out with then were consistent with what he said now. In other words, basically it was the same story. There's no alterations. I didn't quite understand the complexities of the story, but it was basically, it was consistent. And another thing to add on to what Donnie said a minute ago about the credibility of the witness, one thing I would ask would be, why would this gentleman come out with this story? I mean, really, what's in it for him? You know, to do this if it's basically not true. And the story is, it's a tough one to believe, tough one to buy, but here he goes on the record with it, and for us to consider.
Any luck in tracking down any corroborating witnesses in this case?
Actually, I made lots of phone calls. I actually made 72 phone calls, and I called all around the neighborhood and just everybody I could think of. And actually, no. As far as the guy in the pickup truck or the police, there was a police officer at the scene too. I wasn't able to find those people.
Well, I would also like to say Donnie's really been a very aggressive investigator in this case. In fact, I've called her the pit bull of UFO researchers here, because she really literally called, I would say, about 100 people in that area. And we did talk with the gentleman who was with the fire department. We made brief reference to that there in the tape. He gave us some testimony that was very similar to what we had heard from the primary claimant. But we're not going to make a direct connection until we get some more substantive information to give us some background behind that.
Okay. So what, you know, I know you're just sort of disclaiming right now, but is there some kind of workable, identifiable thing going on here? I mean, what's your best guess at this point?
As far as what happened?
Yes.
Well, you know, I don't really care to speculate, because when you get into speculations, you know, that's going to lead down a lot of avenues. I would say if you had me at gunpoint,
yes,
and you had to have me give some kind of, I would say it had something to do with Wright-Patterson Air Force Base.
So you're looking into.
I'm looking there, but you know, you're not going to prove it, and it's not going to be admitted if it's true. I don't
Any chance that maybe high tension power lines might have generated a coronal discharge? Any place near something like that?
That's grand speculation. I wouldn't even want to go there.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you for a very fascinating and interesting case. Thanks. Ron, let's get back to the Mothman quickly here before we're finished. There's going to be a lot of information available, maybe on the internet and maybe through the other media. Have you come across something that our audience can go to for probably the most reliable and balanced report on the Mothman incidents?
Well, my old friend, longtime investigator and researcher Lauren Coleman has a book out. It was released last month called Mothman and Other Curious Encounters. You can pick this up at all the major bookstores. John Keel's original book, Mothman Prophecies, dated 1975, which I'm sure is in reprint now. But the best book that we have found is called Mothman, The Facts Behind the Legend by Donnie Sargent and Jeff Walmsley. You can get this book by going to mothmanlives.com and all the information you want. What I like about this book, there's no speculation, no pet theories. It's all the raw information from newspaper clippings and witness testimony.
And these guys are what, residents of Point Pleasant?
Yes, they're local guys and a very nice gentlemen. I highly suggest this book for getting the true facts. As I said, go to mothmanlives.com and you can order it through there. It's also like rated number 4 on Amazonbooks.com for cryptozoology.
Okay. Well, we covered a lot of ground again here with our program. And there's so many mysteries in this world and so many things to do about them that the best thing you can always do to help yourself understand these things is to go to reliable sources of information. Maybe even go out there and do some your own investigations, because the best defense against being fooled is being informed. Thank you for being with us.